Okay. All right. So here we are, part 3 of the lipids video, phospholipids. So we're gonna start out similar to triglycerides, similar to a fat, because lipids essentially are fats, right? Kind of have the same property of fats, no matter what kind of lipid you are. But so the pieces of triglyceride, pieces of fat. Right here again. So we got you got glycerol. So glycerol is it's just an alcohol, right? So this is glycerol. Before we kind of talked about waxes a little bit, kind of mentioned alcohol a little bit. Not really what we're focusing on right now, but this is very similar to a hydrocarbon, right? Just instead of some hydrogens, we got some hydroxides, some OHs, and the replacement of these essentially is you got alcohol, right? So glycerol is an alcohol. And it's kind of our base of our fat, the base of our triglyceride. It's also kind of the base of our phospholipid, which we're talking about today. So what happens is the glycerol bonds with fatty acids, with our triglyceride, with our fat, right? Through dehydration, synthesis, removal of the water, and whatnot. So you end up with something, kind of like this, right? You got hydrogens bonded to the carbons, right? You might have a double bond in there, right? Unsaturated fatty acid. Same thing here. Anyway, so triglyceride is an alcohol or glycerol molecule, 3 fatty acids. All right, now we're talking about a phospholipid. It's very similar, except it does not have one of these fatty acids. All right, but glycerol is able to hold 3 things. So instead of having 3 fatty acids, we have 2 fatty acids. Okay, and we will have a addition of a phosphate. We'll have a phosphate group up there. So we still have 3 things bonded to this glycerol, just like a triglyceride, but we don't have 3 fatty acids. So very similar, but very different, right? Has a different structure, has a different function. Remember, structure determines function. Oh yeah, that's good, babe. That's good. So we're kind of left with what we say is 2 parts, right? We have the bottom parts. This is kind of like tails, right? So we call this the hydro. Now our fats, right? We don't mix well with water. We don't interact with water. This is the hydrophobic tails. All right, hydrophobic tails. The other section will be this section here, right? And this is going to be called the hydrophilic head. All right, hydrophilic head.
Daddy, look.
I know, that's good. That's good. So we have the hydrophilic head, which means it's polar. In order to be hydrophilic, interact with water, you got to be polar, which means charged sides. And then the bottom half of this is just like all the other fats, and it's hydrophobic. It does not interact with water very good. Yeah, you did it good. You did a good little O right there. I'm going to erase this a little bit. Now, it's cool.
Daddy, you
All right.
missed my O.
Sorry, babe. So we have the polar hydrophobic or hydrophilic heads, the non-polar hydrophobic fatty acids, fatty tails, right, of this. So we have a polar area up here. We have a non-polar area down bottom. Now, just like magnets, polarity things can kind of hold together, right? Just like magnets can. So as we get more phospholipids in an area, They start to line up. Stop. Don't erase it, please.
I try one.
Please don't erase it. All right. Go draw over there. Go draw over there. Oh, I did not. All right. So we're starting to get this layer of phospholipids. And then, all right, so just like the polar areas come together, so would, the non-polar areas, right? And then you have your heads down here, right? So we have this thing, which is very important that this forms the way it is. So we call this phospholipid, because those are phospholipids, right? There's two layers, so we call it a bilayer, phospholipid bilayer, two layers of phospholipids, right? This is what our cell membranes are made out of. This is we don't have cell walls, right? In animal cells, we have a cell membrane. So our cell membrane is built primarily of these. There are some other components that are kind of wedged in here, right? We talked about cholesterol. Might have a cholesterol, jammed in there, which is fine. That's cool. Not a big deal. All right, so we have some things kind of lodged in. They have different functions, and we'll talk about the functions of these things in the cell membranes later today. Right now, we're focusing on what's our base of this. What are lipids used for? And these phospholipids bilayers makes our cell membranes, right? And it's cool, right? So kind of the basic way this works out is, hang on, baby. These are hydrophobic on the outside, and are hydrophilic on the outside and inside. In between the bilayers are hydrophobic. So these areas here interact with the fluids and stuff in our body, which is, if you know, most of our body is water, right? We're like 70% water, something like that. So it interacts with the things outside of the cell, right? So if this is the cell, this is the outside, this will be the extracellular zone, and then intracellular zone. How you going? Hang on. Thank you for trying to clean my board. So these things interact with the things in the extracellular matrix and intercellular matrix very well. But when these water-like things, or things with charge, or big things, or whatever have you, comes along, and it tries to go through. Right? Say a water molecule comes along and tries to go through, it won't make it, right? It can't go through this hydrophobic area. So larger things with chargers, and we'll learn more about what can kind of make it through and what can't. But just this cell membrane keeps things in and out because it's it's a lipid, which is hydrophobic, but it has a hydrophilic part to it too, and it's a bilayer. So when you hear phospholipid, mine should go straight to this phospholipid bilayer and cell membrane. The structure of them allows them to have a polar end and non-polar tails. Allows the unique function of the phospholipid, which is be the cell membrane. So, hope it's not too hectic. Got a 4-year-old. 4-year-olds can be quite distracting. I don't want to remake this video. I'm ready to go home. So hope this worked out. All right, if y'all need me to redo it, let me know. If it gets confusing or kind of hectic. All right. See y'all.